Welcome back to the program. It's the Vicki McKenna Show. So as I said, until federal action can be taken to undo DEI and some of the damaging impacts it has had in Wisconsin schools, it's a school to school and district to district battle, and we've drafted no one to try to take on Jill Underly, who is perfectly content allowing school districts to engage in illegal activity. And we have yet another example of that. And this isn't one of those where a kid has been denied access to a special club or a field trip or something like that. This is a kid who's been damaged by DEI. Dan Lennington from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty is familiar with this story, and Will is acting on behalf of the mom in this particular school district, which is Green Bay, after her son was denied special education for dyslexia because he was the wrong skin color. And we'll talk about your piece in the Federalist as well, Dan, because it gets us to some of the things that maybe could take place federally that could help us here in Wisconsin. It's great to have you. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Vicki.
So tell me about this story. This kid, from what I can understand, I watched his mom explain, and he had been, it's been determined he had dyslexia. He had difficulty reading. He had a particularly bad case of it, so a particularly challenging case. And his mother was was she not given access to special education, or was she flat out denied access?
Well, after he started at this elementary school, she met with everyone and explained his diagnosis, said that, at the previous school he had gotten one-on-one treatment from specialists, and they immediately put him on a wait list. And he was on a wait list for now almost a full year. She didn't know why, and she was looking around on the school website and found a document called the School Success Plan. And the School Success Plan has a very clear section on how they're going to improve literacy, including helping kids with dyslexia. And it says, quote, intentional work educating our focus students, prioritizing additional resources to First Nations, Black, and Hispanic students. Now, Ms. Decker's son is white, she's white, and so she and her son is not eligible to receive these additional resources because they're not a priority group. And when she met with the principal acknowledged that they do have this policy. And she also heard from a teacher that the school actually has a spreadsheet of all the kids in the school. And get this, this is going to blow your head off here. They have a spreadsheet where the kids are that they're labeled by color. There's a color-coded spreadsheet, and they sort this spreadsheet to make sure they are giving Native American, Black, and Hispanic students treatment first and assistance first in the area of reading, the literacy, dyslexia help. They're going to get priority treatment first. And they review the spreadsheet all the time to make sure that these color-coded kids get exactly what they deserve according to this is all DEI. This is how DEI works. This happens all the time. We hear from parents all the time. Kids are being denied services. They're being treated differently, but they're being disciplined differently because of their race, all in the name of equity.
Okay. So we have kids sorted by color, and administrators who are only looking at the sorting by color, and services, including services that kids can legally demand, that their parents can legally demand for them, are denied to the non-person of color students because the kids are white. What's the excuse for letting a child whose mom has a legal right to demand this special education for him flounder without assistance?
Yeah,
what's the school's excuse?
The school is that we need to have racial equity. We have got groups, kids who are minorities are falling behind at a faster rate than white kids, and so we need, in the Asian kids, and so we need to treat those racial groups specially and give them special treatment so that we can equalize all people as members of racial groups. You ignore the fact that these are individual kids with individual needs. And all we are asking is a school district to help kids who need help. If a kid needs help, give them help. Ignore what their color is. Their color doesn't make them any more or less likely to have dyslexia. But the people who run the Green Bay Public Schools think that your color does make you more likely to have learning disadvantage.
No, they don't. They don't. They just think that white bad, non-white good. The color coding in and of itself is a mechanism by which disparity will be institutionalized. So this no disparity stuff is BS, because denying this child special education because he's white creates disparity. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm understanding the definition of disparity. I know these people live in la la land and just invert everything, but that's dumb. That's a dumb thing to say. And is that what the mom was told? Well, I'm sorry, but we need to get equitable outcomes. And so your kid is not going to be able to learn to read effectively. And so sorry about that. But when he's in 8th grade and he can, barely get any decent marks on his assignments, that's, just blame your whiteness.
Now, at the teacher level, the teacher is very sympathetic and very nice. And I feel like most teachers in the state who want to help kids who need help are very frustrated by the policies and the plans that are sort of foisted upon them to make sure that they institutionalize equity. And so there's definitely sympathy for this young boy at the school, but it's not coming from the principal. The principal does acknowledge that this policy exists, that the kids are prioritized based on race. And the school district and the school board are sort of right now, throwing their hands up in the air and saying, well, this technically isn't a policy of the school district, even though it's on their website and it says that it's one of their most important strategic plans and that they are, in fact, implementing it. So there's a lot of word games going on now, and that's what
Shame
they
on
do.
them.
These people, they play word games and they hurt kids, and this happens all the time.
So not technically a policy. That's what they're saying. It's not technically a policy. I mean, it's kind of a policy, but it's not technically a policy. It functions as a policy, but nobody actually called it a policy. And so we're not going to call it a policy, and screw you. That's what they're trying to get away with here. So again, are they saying, well, we have so many limited, such limited resources that we just don't have enough resources to address all the special ed kids? They're just saying, we got the resources, we're just not going to help your kid.
We are, quote, prioritizing additional resources to First Nations, Black, and Hispanic students. You may remember that the city of Madison Public Schools had an almost identical policy that we sued them over a couple of years ago, and I was on your show to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Meet with your African American students first and more often. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, yes.
This is going on, and this is actually a rare instance in which we've caught them red-handed, because a lot of this stuff is done behind closed doors. The administrators are afraid to put this in writing. They're trained to do equity, which is race discrimination. They're trained to get rid of systemic racism. They know they're not allowed to discriminate based on race, and so they darn well better not put it down in writing. So the result is that kids are disciplined different at school. Kids are giving different services at school, and they just sort of just vaguely say, well, equity, that's our shining star here is equity. That's what we need to do. And what happens every day is that real kids don't get the services they need. Real kids are in danger in violent schools, and real kids aren't learning, and they're not getting grades. And when they get poor achievement at schools, BPI just fixes the numbers and tells everybody, oh, everybody's meeting standards.
Right.
So
it's exactly true.
Bureaucrats, these are a bunch of, race-baiting government bureaucrats that lie about how these kids are underachieving and being the victims of discrimination.
So this is illegal, and you're representing the mom. And we don't have anyone who is going to try to take on Jill Underly. So we're stuck with this unless the feds can do something effective enough to undercut this kind of insidious racism, institutionalized racism being peddled by the teachers unions, the administrators, CISAs under DPI. What could they do? What could the feds do that could help us in Wisconsin with stuff like this?
Well, the feds have Department of Education, which Linda McMahon is going to be the Secretary of Education. And one of the most powerful tools in the Department of Education is called the OCR, the Office of Civil Rights. And that office has broad powers to investigate any claims of race discrimination. Anybody, you can file a claim with them, and any parent can file a claim with them online. They will assign an investigator, and they will investigate the race discrimination. Now, under this new administration, I think they're going to be very much more attuned to the fact that DEI is discrimination. And so that these policies that are going on in K through 12 schools around Wisconsin and around the United States are going to be closely scrutinized. And you know what happens if you violate civil rights laws in public schools is one thing: you can lose your money. You can lose your federal funds. And so
I like this.
if you want to play DEI games, school districts, you're going to have to pay for it because you're going to get in your budget.
So that warms the cockles. I wish I had a bit more time with you, Dan. This is a really interesting story. Please go on X to WI Law Liberty. Or Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, which is will-law.org, and read about this kid and other school districts that are doing this. Thanks very much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Vicki.
Dan Lennington, ladies and gentlemen, he's got a great piece as well at The Federalist. If you go to thefederalist.com, you can read Dan's piece on DEI. We will be right back.